even now, there's still some sort of, funniness about certain things that you do with your husband in the bed. So a lot of things, I remember going to a marriage conference even before we were married. We went to a marriage conference, and the whole idea of oral sex came about, and using toys and different things, and people were very adamantly against it. And the facilitator was like, okay, but God created sex to enjoy, and he created, each other to enjoy each other. As long as you're not doing certain things, then it's not a sin. Like, it's not a sin if you're not, as long as you're not bringing other people in, and you're not fantasizing about somebody else. Like, certain things, they're just not a sin. And so even the connotation of like having oral sex and just different things, we've been conditioned to say naughty, naughty, naughty. It's still wrong, even within marriage. It's wrong. And even like you had sent me that post last week about how they said that a woman's mouth does not belong on a man's penis. And I sort of laughed. I laughed it out. A pastor said that. And I laughed. And it was a very long conversation that me and you had. And I was like, and they based it off of this scripture about sodomy and all this stuff. And I remember going through this whole idea of like, oh my God, Jesus, I'm going to hell because I'm enjoying this. Like, oh my God. And I remember going through that and having this personal conviction of like, God, is this wrong? And I had to learn that, your convictions are your convictions. If you're just that convicted that that's wrong, then that's on you. But that's not my conviction. The Holy Spirit ain't tell me that. You know what I'm saying? And if he does tell me that, we're going to have to work through some things.
Well, pass it down. Let's talk about this now.
Right. So just even even the double standards within marriage, within the church, make it even hard to even realize that there is a sexual freedom. There is a beautiful thing that you can have with your mate, and there is an openness that you should have with your spouse, and be able to talk about it. I remember like having my first official like sex conversation with my husband, and I was just like, I was shy, and I'm like, we've had sex many times, and I got the nerve to be shy. You shy with somebody that done seen every little crevice and crease and all that stuff. Like I just like, the innermost part.
Yeah, you know what? Because I feel like I really suffered from, if you guys watch the Love Hour podcast, Mrs. Kev on Stage talks about having the like good girl syndrome or something like that. I really feel like I had that. So like, so part of why we're talking about this is because I'm like on this quest of like sexual freedom
within marriage
right now.
Yeah,
within marriage.
Let's go.
So they had on one of their podcasts, they had a sexologist who has these conversation cards about sex. So I ordered them. I said, I'm gonna get free. We're gonna talk about something.
We'll be right back.
Right after these messages. Children, I'm talking about. This was last month. Is what I want y'all to know. This was last month
that you ordered it.
That I received these cards.
Oh my!
I'm not talking about years ago. I'm talking about last month. I read the first question. And I said, I'm not going to be able to do this. And I put those cards.
What was the first question?
I don't even
remember. Let me slide those quick. Take a picture of each card.
Right. Y'all can come over.
Yeah.
Up the street.
I hope that's not a vain.
No,
the empty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first card, I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. All the lights on. It was daylight. I can't remember. But I remember like,
blushing,
I asked him, and he was like, "You answer." I was like, "I'm not gonna be able to do that." And he was like, "Well, this ain't how this works." And I was like, "Well, this ain't how this works."
For real?
I'm so.
That's funny
serious.
Because I had a conversation with my husband last week, and I was like, "Well, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
Oh my gosh.
Like it was like,
listen,
I don't know. I felt like a little kid. Like I was in trouble, and it was like." I don't know, because what I was explaining is like your sexuality changes and it goes through these cycles. So like even me before marriage and the way I sexually is totally different than what I am now. And then I've also been influenced by a lot of other things that I've heard. We'll talk about that later. But so
I think we need dinner after this.
Yeah.
We need a wrap.
So like I was trying to explain something to my husband. He was like, "Well, what do you want?" I'm like, I don't know.
My husband gets so frustrated with me, and he was like, "If you don't know what you like, how am I?" And I'm like, "Well,
Just try everything.
try.
And I'll tell you.
Try.
what.
Just- I
So
don't
here's
know.
what I think. This is what I think because I think that I'm very similar. I think I can be uncomfortable. I can be shy, and I think it's almost like I don't want to sound. I'm afraid of how I sound. I don't want to sound like
nasty.
nasty. I don't want to sound nasty. I want to sound like, okay, is that not okay? And I don't want to be embarrassed. I'm gonna put myself out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
How about this? I love my husband with my whole heart, and there's nothing I won't share, nothing I won't do. I'll be naked, like that's fine. But when it comes about talking about sexual needs, I just feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid to say something that sounds dumb or that is like, okay, you want me to do that? When I know for 100% sure my husband will be down with anything.
Yeah, right.
He would be willing to
It's
do
like,
anything.
go.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's do it right now. Like, how you want me to do it? Which way you want me to hit it? How you
Yeah,
want to
right,
stand?
yeah, right.
Where you
So,
want to sit?
You want the leg, like
Right. Whatever. Like, he's down for
know.
whatever. So I think it's just something in me that would feel embarrassed if I
Yeah.
sound weird.
It's,
if I
we've
sound-
been conditioned.
or
Yeah.
I think we've been really conditioned to feel like it. Like as much as I say, "Oh, I'm liberated," but it's like I could not. I clammed up and I was like, "Wait a minute! Like you are not shy. You are not none of this stuff."
Yeah.
And I was just like, "I don't know. And I'm like trying to have this open conversation at 3:00 in the morning.
Girl.
About-
Then you start crying.
Right?
okay, yeah, and then
Then
it's just like
don't be crying during. It's like, I'm
Oh.
sorry. Lift it up, girl.
Makes it even
Oh,
worse.
that happens. You start
Man.
crying during sex, after sex.
yeah,
Like,
because
I
you're
did
just
wrong.
like I don't even know, because you just it feels so foreign, but it's like why? It's like part of it feels like natural, like it feels. It's like you have these sexual desires that are natural, but then like everything besides the internal feeling feels foreign.
Yeah.
So like even to say like I have to like send a text message I'm not gonna be like take your pants off. Like that's not gonna happen. And
I might.
Look, I might.
But even in saying that, I may still feel
Naked.
kind of like, oh,
and it's
that's
negative
not
on the
good.
right.
or I'm gonna have
Thank
to
you.
muster up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to I'm talking about from a well.
A deep, deep place.
A well. I'm gonna have to muster. I told you I'm on this quest. So I had a little something on because I just
Go
I'm
ahead,
trying to
something
I'm trying to do
Come
something.
on, do that little something on.
And my husband was like, I feel like I need to see what you got on. I said, nope, no you don't. It's for me, not you. Don't look at me.
Wait, you were trying on lingerie?
No, I had it on.
Oh, and you had some over it?
It was dark. Covered. The lights were out.
Okay.
And he was like, what is this? I feel like I need to see you. And I was like, you don't.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Won't y'all pray? Come on, extend the hand.
Right. We gonna extend a hand this way.
Somebody grab a bag.
Right.
Look what church has done. No, I'm just joking.
Right.
I want to
for
hear
real.
Dana because Dana
Yeah.
is like shocked.
Yeah.
and appalled.
She, right.
So
She really is.
I want to. So tell us about how comfortable you are and how tell us about your experience because we are real.
Look at her
I'm
face.
sweating.
I'm sweating.
She's a ball.
Listen.
She's a ball. That is a
sweating.
ball.
I'm like, I'm about to take this sweater off.
Right.
Whoop. So go
But you
ahead.
can't take it off, girl.
I
'cause
don't even
you
know
don't
what
want
to
cause
share
anybody
because-
Right. You don't want nobody to know.
Over your shoulder.
You
I didn't know that was a thing. So
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I just.
Teach me.
Teach me your way.
Oh, great one. Oh,
I
great
guess
one.
it's
Right.
just more a thing about my personality because I'm just the type of person, and this is even like with best friends, and especially with my husband. If there's anything that I ever felt like nervous about or felt like I can't approach you about or something I can't talk about, that's the thing that I'm going to talk about first and as blunt as I can because I need reassurance that I don't need to be afraid. And so I don't really remember having a conversation like that with my husband, but I'm assuming that it happened because I am just no holds bars. Like, but we both are. But I just thought that was like kind of normal because I'm just like, I mean, whether it's during or after, like we just play a lot of games. We just have a lot of communication because the thing is, prior to him, I just had a really icky view of sex. I just had like a very like it's boring, it's not fulfilling, it's not fun.
And this is what I
and
saved
this
all
is
this
more
for.
you. Right. It's more for you, it's not for me. But like after marriage and with my husband, it was like, this is something else. Like this is incredible. And I just want to communicate about every part of it.
I do believe that God has designed sex to be something pleasurable between a husband and a wife. And when you are in marriage, that is the one time when there should be a freedom and that you feel the freedom. I remember feeling free having sex with people I wasn't married to. So why keep that same energy with your husband?
Right.
So that kind of thing that plays with your mind, those double voices that sort of play with your mind when you're trying to, you know, be freaky and be like, yeah, take off your clothes, like, yeah, give me some of that. And then you're like, oh no, I shouldn't be saying that. Like, oh no, like, you know, I'm a woman. Like, no, but sometimes I do want to be like, but what that mouth do though? You know what I'm saying? Like,
but do that. Like, I feel like
I have
in the moments where I feel
do
like that, I'm not gonna ask him to take off his clothes. I'm going to take them off. Like, I just feel like, I just feel like maybe it's because I know my husband appreciates it. Yeah. But I mean, if I want it, I'm gonna get it, and I feel like maybe it's just the way that I'm wired. But I know I can become so self-conscious and so like just inside myself if I allow my thoughts to roam. And so I guess for me, it's like before I even start considering, well, what if he doesn't want, well, what if he is not attracted today? Or what if this? I'm like, well, I'm gonna go get it. And if he doesn't want it, he can stop me. And that never happens. And because it never happens.
My husband said, I would never tell you no.
Yeah,
ever.
It consistently reassures me that I am what he wants, that he appreciates, like, you know, when I want to go after what I want and not just wait for him to be like, come on, let's do it, or for him to jump on me. I do think that the church as a whole has done a very poor job at preparing women and men for understanding sex life, understanding marriage, understanding our bodies. But I will say this, I do understand, like, even when you hit me up to do this and you asked me to be a part of this, one of my first thoughts was, yeah, like I would love to do that, but how much do I share and still keep like the sanctity of my marriage? Right. So I can only imagine, because my father was a pastor growing up, I can only imagine the pressure that they would have to be like, how much can I share and how much can I, you know, kind of vouch for without giving away the details of my marriage and my life. And so I think that's where like marriage conferences and premarital counseling, and not even, but like singles counseling too, where that comes in handy, because that way you have people who want what you have to say, you know, and you're not just saying it to a broad audience of anybody who shows up on a Sunday. But I can definitely understand, because I'm thinking about my parents, and I realized that after I got married, the conversation with my parents has changed drastically. And they have been so much more open. So many things that I knew would never be funny before marriage are hilarious now. Like joking with my mom about so many things, like just that I would think are so inappropriate for my household. But I understand, because it's right now we're 4 people and we're talking to a camera. You know what I mean? And people will see it. But for them, for people, you know, who are in leadership in the church, they have such a high standard, and it's like any move they make can kind of it can be criticized. So I understand it, but I would say that there has to be a happy medium of understanding of the church being understanding of the fact that we are human beings and we have desires, we have urges, and they're natural and they're made by God, and those have to be acknowledged and honored, and not just like, you know, ridiculed and put fear in, so that every time we think of our bodies in that way, it's like, this is bad, no. So we have to find definitely a happy medium in addressing those issues, but also, you know, being accepted in the fact that people fall, people fail, like we didn't know what to do with those feelings. I'll just speak for myself. I didn't know what to do with those feelings. I wanted to be liked, I wanted to be loved, and I wanted to show the person that I loved the best of me.
Yeah.
And you know, you telling me don't do it in that moment just wasn't enough.
Right.
You know, for years it was enough, but in that moment it's just not enough.
Yeah.
And we have to find another way, I feel, to get people to understand, you know, what sex is and what is happening.
I will say this really quick. I do want to say that I can't go without saying that I appreciate my church, because my church, I feel like, taught me. Yeah, there were certain expectations that I had, but it still taught me about how sex is okay, how being sexual is okay, and how my body, it wasn't bad and things weren't nasty. Like I said, there's things that I learned growing up. I grew up in a different church context than when I, went to college and joined a different ministry. That where I learned about it's okay to be sexual, it's okay to be about within the realm of marriage, and to prepare me with the whole premarital counseling and just mentors who could talk to you about certain things if you have questions, if you're afraid, if you need some whatever. So I do want to say that there are some churches that are definitely making a difference and definitely trying to break the stereotype and break the stigma of this whole idea of sex, because that helped me. It helped my husband and I. Especially, like I said, especially that whole premarital, because in premarital we talked about sex, we talked about expectations and certain things. So to be okay, to be comfortable, and even as a single, you mentioned it's so important to talk to singles, because it's good to talk to. We can do it, and you have the singles who don't. So they also, my pastor is also able to focus. He focuses a lot on singles, how to maximize your season and how to get everything out of life, and understand that it's okay to be sexual, just not doing anything with those actions and what it takes to kind of keep yourself and why, not just because the Bible says it, because it will help you later in the long run. It wasn't until I joined that ministry when I was like 19 years old that I learned, okay, this, and that is when I decided at that point to be celibate. That's when I decided until years later when I would marry my husband, because I have value, because I have worth, and because I'm setting myself up for failure later on in life. So like I said, although we've learned, especially all of us kind of growing up in a similar church context, that it was so bad, there are some churches.
I definitely I wanted to say that too, because I had we joined the same church, and that was the first time that I was like, oh, I'm not nasty. Like, oh, there's not something wrong. And so slowly but surely, but maybe it shouldn't be also slow in terms of like that's the only ministry I can think of right now off the top of my head that is like that.
So I think the part of it is like being connected to people who are a little bit more open and less in that mindset of that sort of old school of doing things because that's what we were told, not because it was even biblically sound or had anything to do with anything. But.
So I just want to say that I appreciate you ladies so much.
I appreciate you.
Thank you guys for coming and sharing.
This was a great topic.
We probably have to continue on it.
We're gonna keep talking about it. So don't forget, I'm gonna drop everybody's social media handle. Everybody's doing stuff. So
follow me. Okay.
Follow us all.
Follow us.
Yes.
Follow us as we follow Christ.
Yeah, as we follow Christ. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully this was helpful to somebody watching. If for no other reason, just to know that other people feel like you feel, to normalize some of the things that you experience. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe, we can be part of the change we want to see in the world. Okay, y'all. It's been real. It's been good. As always, with my rib tips. Chew the meat, spit out the bones.
Or suck on that bone.